So I lived with my mother in a very old ex-Victorian bakery shop type stone house, detached in a very rural hamlet. We lived there for just over 2 years before moving to the town. It was a beautiful house with a lot of potential. One interesting detail is that it had a basement and a couple of cellar rooms. In my country, it's not common to have a proper cellar, let alone a basement. However, the landlord kept those separately locked up and wouldn't let us use them. The house was definitely haunted. I'm skeptic myself, but can only deny the evidence. Plus, even being skeptical, I still love anything to do with ghosts. Some examples: odd noises coming from under the house at night. Okay, this could have been rats in the cellar. Myself and a friend witnessed a curtain move, almost like when a cat is behind one. The windows were closed and there were definitely no drafts. Things would sometimes seem to throw themselves off of the kitchen counters, like the kitchen roll which was stood at the back of the worktop suddenly taking a dive. The electrics would trip all the time, although could be normal for an old house. And one time the lights just clicked off, yet the fuse box hadn't even tripped this time. I went and just flipped the light switch back on. At night, there were definite sounds of movement out on the landing floorboards. There was once an unexplained cold spot over part of the sofa. I could literally put my hand in and out of it, and there were no drafts. The wall between mine and my mother's room was wooden. One night I heard her knock. I thought she was messing around, so I knocked back. And then she also knocked back again. I questioned her about it after, and she said she didn't do such thing. I always felt a calm yet sad female presence in the house. When home alone, I never felt alone. One night, I woke suddenly because I thought my mom had come through my bedroom door. I immediately witnessed a middle-aged, thin brunette lady up at my face looking at me curiously. When she realized I had awoken, she looked nervous, backed away, and literally faded into nothing. It was like I had spooked her. I'm skeptical about this though, as it could have been a hypnomorphic hallucination. After experiencing all of these ongoing occurrences for quite some time, we found out from a local friend of the landlord that his wife had died in the house. So it's not even like we knew about the death and noticed these things after. This really amazed us and validated our thoughts about the house. I actually used to lay in bed sometimes and talk out loud to the spirit. I thought maybe there. I felt she was lonely and sad that her family had moved on. One day, me and my mother managed to sneak into a cellar room, and there were lots of really old bottles and jars, still filled with things. Not sure what, wine and preserves maybe? But the odd thing was this hole in the ground, like a little well of water about a foot in diameter. I've watched a few paranormal shows, and a lot of these haunted properties have wells or holes with them, under them which seem to act as a portal. The issue I'm having now is that I'm being very intensely drawn back to the house. I dream about it all the time. The dreams always include spirits and are sometimes full-on nightmares, yet other times just spooky. After these dreams, I am always feeling desperate to reconnect with the house, like I need to go back there. I even search the real estate sites for it regularly, just to see it again and get any news on the property. My longing for this house is driving me mad. I sometimes feel like jumping in my car and driving the 130 miles away just to go see it. I have a bit of experience with lucid dreaming. Not much, but a little. This time I seemed to go lucid, but something was very off. I thought I was awake. Wow, not realizing until writing this, but I don't know if I was awake or asleep. When I heard a rhythmic tapping of somebody's fingernails on the opposite side of the far wall of my room. Before being able to think much of it, I heard a baby's laughter and my body began to lift out of itself, and I was floating above my bed. I didn't think much of it at first because I thought I was just going lucid and trying to stay calm. But then I realized this wasn't like a lucid dream I've had before, because this time I wasn't the one in control. It brought me to the foot of my bed. My body, still floating, began to spin. It got faster and faster, and I had a weird way of knowing it was something controlling me and that it was about to drop me. And when it did, I dropped to the floor and got put back in my body in my bed. I began trying to scream, but couldn't. The experience was similar to a dream I had when I was younger, where this black entity, in some weird way female, followed me around until coming face to face with it as I tried to scream at the top of my lungs. It took my breath away and I couldn't make the slightest noise. But this more recent dream was different because I couldn't move my body and I was in the real world in my bed, as opposed to being in the dream world I was in my dream when I was younger. Also, this time, the entity wouldn't reveal itself. Does anyone have an idea what this thing could have been? Or should I not go looking? This dream, or whatever it was, took place roughly a year ago. Side note, Baker 4 and Frank Ocean's cover of Moon River are both very inspiring. I dreamt of my grandma for a full year after she passed away. Sounds far-fetched, right? Yeah, I'd find that hard to believe, but I dreamt of her every single night for a full year. In those dreams, we would always have conversations, and I could never remember what we talked about. It was always vague, and I always woke up extremely sad. My very last dream was the most vivid dream. It was a sunny day, and I remember walking towards the back of my grandparents' house, where the clothesline and fruit trees were. Before reaching the back, I passed by our cabin on the property and walked through a narrow walkway that opens up in the backyard. I remember seeing my auntie as I walked up to her. She nodded and her head like, "Look ahead." Right there in the middle of the backyard was my grandma, sitting with her legs folded, sewing. Just how I would always find her coming home from school. Anyways, I also noticed how incredibly bright and sunny it was. I could actually feel the warmth all around me, and it was so bright, blindingly bright. And another thing, she was surrounded by the most beautiful garden I had ever seen. I remember the colours being so vivid, the greenery just surrounded her. She looked at peace, and I truly believe she was in heaven. I remember feeling so much sorrow. I had a million things I wanted to say to her because I knew that this was not real. But all I could manage with tears running down my face was, "She misses you, you know." She replied, "I know, I miss her too." Then she said, "You have to let me go." For context, we were talking about my baby, her favourite and closest great-grandchild. I woke up after that and realised I had been crying in my sleep. The sorrow was so overwhelming, I didn't stop crying for a while. Deep down in my heart, I know that that was a goodbye from her. I never dreamt of her again for a long time. That was the only conversation in all my dreams I remember word for word. I know 100% without a doubt she was telling me to let her go and goodbye. I kept meaning to ask my auntie if we shared the same dream. Whenever I think to bring it up, it slips my mind. So when I was around 2, me, my mum, my dad, my older sister and older brother lived in an apartment a couple streets down from where I live now. Me and my brother were around the same age since I was only 9 months younger than him. And we both shared a room. My mum told me recently about some experiences she had in that apartment. I'll list off a few she told me. The cabinets, all of them in the kitchen, would fling open at night when everyone was asleep. The only reason she ever knew about this was because my sister told her we would hear walking going up and down the stairs. And by the rooms at night, for some reason, the entity seemed to love going around making a mess. I'm calling it an entity because spirits is more like a living thing before, and this thing was demonic. This thing was bad. and I truly believe it's somehow managed to follow us to where we live now. My mom told me she got a Bible. We still have that Bible to this day. We're not a religious family, so it was bad when my mom was gifted a Bible. And she got it from a friend because she was telling them about this thing in the apartment. And she was reading it one night when my dad was asleep because she was afraid. Then she heard the stomping of feet coming closer and closer. Like if this thing knew she was reading, it was going to stop her from doing it. She closed the book and put it down, scared out of her mind. She would tell me that I would run into her room afraid, same as my brother. I'm pretty sure my younger brother also lived there for a few months, and he would scream and cry at night from seeing or hearing something that my mom or dad couldn't see. The last thing I know of that apartment is one that scared my dad so bad that he completely erased it from his mind. So this happened on the day we were moving out our stuff. And in a moving van, getting ready to leave my mom, my sister, and my siblings. We're outside waiting for my dad to come out with the last thing. And my mom swore she saw a big shadowing figure behind my dad as he was walking out. But my dad looked puzzled behind him. When my mom said there's something behind him, he turned and froze in place. So scared he couldn't move, giving off such a demonic energy. He was scared, he was afraid. And my dad usually doesn't get afraid, so that freaked him out bad. I feel like it managed to attach itself to one of us, because I do see big shadowy figures every once in a while. Now this happened when I was around 11 or 12. It was after my mom's wedding. Me and my younger siblings were taken to my friend's house to stay the night, because a wedding with children after hours did not mix. And I remember being in the basement because it was big enough for all of us there with a TV and couches, and a bed near an old bar they didn't use anymore. So there was me, my friend, my two younger siblings, and my older brother. We played on the PS3 until like 1 a.m. after we all went to bed. Now that's out of the way, let's get to the weird parts. So I slept on the biggest couch. Another bed was taken down from upstairs, so it was in the middle between the two couches and another bed. My siblings were on the beds and my friend was on the other couch, so she was right beside my head. I woke up to a creaking of a door slowly opening. There was a toy room behind the couch I was sleeping on, and the light was coming through from outside because it was early morning. I sat up and looked to the back of the room behind the bar. There was a door there that led to the boiler room, if that's what it's called. There was a fridge there, but it was pitch dark, even though there was a window with no curtains anyway. I couldn't see anything, so I grabbed my glasses off the floor. I put them on so I could see better, and there I saw it. I swear my blood ran cold coming out of that room. I could see a grey hand reaching out and then another. And the face came out after it all. I could see were blank black eyes staring ahead. The thing crawled on all fours. I could hear it scraping against the floor. It was skinny and long. I was frozen on that couch. It hid behind the bar and I could see it peeking from the side, looking at me. There was also a fish tank in the middle of the bar, so I can see the outline of the thing behind it. I was too afraid to yell as it stalked around and got closer to the couch I was on. It walked between the bed and the couch, looking at me, still not blinking. It made no noise, but it's scraping against the floor. Just then, my friend moved in her sleep, and this thing's head moved so quickly to look at her, it started going towards her instead. It took 2 steps away and was reaching for her head. Its weirdly pointed fingers got closer to her face. At this point, I was finally able to get the courage to move. I screamed so loud. It moved to look at me, and then found myself bolting up on the couch, sight blurry and confused. I rushed to get my glasses. I found them under the couch. I put them on and I frantically looked at the door to see wide open. My friend awoke to me yelling and looked at me weird and asked what was wrong. I told her this thing was after her. It was about to touch her, but it's not there anymore. But the door is open. I started to cry. I got my things leaving, my siblings behind, I left. I never really told anyone this but her. Just recently, like a year ago, I went to her house again. I still went there, and her mom recently told me that she told her about what happened. So she got a medium to come in and look at the house. And the medium told her that something bad was in the back room, so she was going to get rid of it. Now, I was shocked because at first I thought some kind of weird dream. But I don't know, take it as you will. I have no idea what went on. I still hate going down in that basement. I always get such a weird feeling. So this is a story from a couple of years ago. I've heard this from mouth to mouth because this kind of news spreads like wildfire. At first, I thought it was just a rumour, but one of my friends actually went to the couple's house to confirm this. Turns out, the rumours are true. There's a married couple near where I live. The wife had been pregnant for 7 or 8 months. One day, the wife woke up with her baby gone. Like literally her bulging belly was now deflated. Could it be that she had a premature birth while she slept? No, there's no trace of the baby. They went to the hospital to check with ultrasound. No baby. Doctors are baffled and didn't believe her. They thought the cable lied about her pregnancy. The couple still have their pink slips. The slips they gave you every time you check your pregnancy test to track the baby's growth as proof. They didn't lie about her pregnancy. This is the first time I've heard about this happening. I checked on Google, and apparently this was not an isolated incident. Apparently there's an urban legend about a ghost, spirit, demon or whatever that feasts on unborn babies straight from the womb. Creeped me the fuck out. Has anyone heard about this happening in their country? So I got back home from school to find the front door was locked. It was a mesh screen door, so I could see inside it and saw that a key is still attached from the other side. So the way our door works is that the keys can only be attached on one side at a time. So if a key is still attached to one side of the door, you can't insert another key from the other side. So anyone who locked the door must have locked it from the inside and left the key there. Usually, our family always puts away the key after locking the door for the above reason. My family went out of town earlier in the morning, so I figured the only one home at the time was my grandpa. He's old and quite frail, so he rarely ever goes out. I thought he probably locked the door and went on to sleep or something. So I knocked, harder and harder while screaming to wake him up. He's hard of hearing. I kept trying that for about 15 to 20 minutes, but nothing. I'm starting to worry that something might have happened to my grandpa until he came up to our driveway. Turns out he'd been out to the mosque for afternoon prayer. I was stumped. Turns out there'd been nobody home. The kicker was, he did bring a spare key, but we can't use it since there's a key still attached on the other side. My grandpa was as stumped as I am since he left the house only for 30 minutes and brought a spare key with him. There's absolutely no way to lock the door from outside and somehow leave the key on the inside. And there's absolutely no way my gramps could have locked it from the outside if there's still a key inside. The only way to lock it must have been from the inside. I ended up having to punch a hole through the door big enough for my arm to get in so I could turn the key from inside. So, you might be wondering, isn't there any other way my grandpa could have gotten out of the house other than the front door? Yes, the garage door. But to go through there, you have to go through 2 locked doors, both of which my grandma didn't have keys to. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to break the door to begin with. The window is also out of the way since why would an old man go through the window of his own house? Not that it's possible. Anyway, since all of our windows are barred to prevent burglars from entering. The only plausible explanation is that my grandpa didn't lock the door, but the door lock accidentally triggered when he closed it. But this had never happened before, nor since. So I doubt it. First off, I just want to state that this story is 100% true. Whether it was paranormal or not, it was terrifying for me. If I had any way to prove it to you, I would, but my words is all I have. So whether you believe it or not is up to you. I've since asked my little brother, the person involved, if he remembers, but he was very young at the time, and while he believes the story, he can't remember it happening. So here it goes. This paragraph is going to act as a backstory and shed some light on the event. I've always been huge into the paranormal. I grew up listening to family's ghost stories and watching ghost hunters and ghost adventures. I just loved the feeling of being creeped out. Me and my buddies at school would go into the library and act like we were ghost hunting, but nothing ever happened. And that was just it. Years went by and nothing ever happened. No shadows darting out of my peripherals, no seeing dead people, no moving objects. Hell, I've never even had sleep paralysis. All the things you always hear people experiencing, I just simply never have. I did once see a shadow drift by an opaque glass door when I was at my grandparents' home alone. As I put that down as reflection of a bird or something, as a window was right behind me. But for years, I called it a ghost because I still convinced myself I was a believer. I just wanted it to be real. Well, I was a believer up until we moved house when I was around the age of 10. It was a slightly larger house, going from a bungalow to a two-story, and was right across the road from the old house. So should have been exciting. However, when my mother told me about the move, I started to tear up. Not because I would miss the old house, but because just a year or so before, Davy, the older man who lived there before us, died of a heart attack in the snooker club bar across the road. His wife moved away after it happened. For a young boy who based half his life around the paranormal, I don't want to hear any part of them. But years went by and nothing. Just like I said before. That was until this night. I can't remember what age I was, or what age my little brother was, but I do remember he was very young. I was in my early teens, so I want to say I was 14, which would make my brother 3. But take that with a grain of salt. Anyway, he wanted to sleep in my room for the night. I agreed, because I'm just that cool. I had a small couch in my room which he slept on. The couch was at the opposite end of the room from the door, facing the door, if that makes sense. So my brother was lying on his side, looking directly out of the door of my room, to the tiny hallway at the top of the stairs, then into his room just across from mine. My room door was open. I was leaning over him, and I was tucking him in, saying goodnight before the lights went off. And I vividly remember he was looking at something. I would never have noticed this, but it's just because of what happened next that made this forgettable detail so memorable. He says, word for word, "There's a man." I sort of froze for a second, even though I heard him clear as day. I just had to clarify. What? He gives a more detailed answer, again word for word. "There's a man walking inside our house." Those words are so clear in my memory. It's such an abnormal way to describe someone in your house. You don't say, "Oh yeah, I saw that dude. He was walking inside my house." It was as if there was something about this man, whether it was the way he was moving, or a partial manifestation, or disfigurement in some way. I don't know. But "there's a man walking inside our house" was the only way my brother would describe what he saw. And when he did, I remember feeling instant chills. I literally had to just stay in that position for a second. It was so unreal. In a moment, over 10 years of TV shows and stories of encounters, I found myself at the heart of a supernatural experience. And although it didn't happen to me personally, being in the presence of a possible paranormal encounter is scary enough. I then pictured Davy, the man mentioned in the paragraph above, and knew it had to have been him. After a few seconds, I came to my senses, as if my brain just seized for a second and thought, wait, you should probably turn around. When I did, guess what? Nothing. Hallucination? That's my guess. But the attention he was giving to the door when I was tucking him in, it was so genuine. And the abnormal way he described its movements, well, I just don't know. He was very, very young, so maybe that's just how he could word it. I do know one thing. There was never a man in there. For some reasons I don't wish to discuss, I ended up the man of the house over the years. Just in case you thought it might have been my little brother's dad. Because of circumstances, we wanted nothing to do with him. If it was a ghost, I don't know who it was. But maybe it was Davy, checking on his old home. I live 20 plus miles outside of town in western part of Wyoming, in known old Indian territory. We find a lot of old pottery and a lot of other things. We only touched one when we first moved to the house, but nothing else. And if we do dig a small clay shard up, we put it back after we're done or relocate it. 2 nights ago, during a howling 40 plus windstorm, normal for this time of year, we heard a super loud woman right by our room outside, also where our 1-year-old sleeps. It scared us, because this has never happened before. I don't think Wens would actually try to call and lure someone with this many other houses around in a subdivision. I knew they lived around here, because this area was taken from them for a typical American thing, oil. And when it dried up, land came for sale, and about 100 years later, here we are. Anyways, we did what you're not supposed to do. My hubby grabbed his gun, turned to the panic on all 3 of our vehicles, and walked outside the perimeter of the house. Nothing, no wind, not even a breeze, no crickets. It was chilly, smoke was gone. We checked on Lily every 5 minutes, almost to make us sure she was okay. My mother-in-law gave us some of her mother's old native stones to put under the bed and in her windows and along the doorway with sage if we needed it. Yesterday night, we then heard baby cries. Like, parents, when your child gets sleep fussy because they're not finding a comfy spot. We heard it all night, sometimes non-stop, and I was right by my daughter's side in her crib, losing it. I was tired of the sounds and just praying they would stop. Then 5 a.m. this morning, my husband left for work. I knew he was gone because I heard the door side by the garage lock and him struggle to get his work truck to start. And I heard his hydrogen tanks and shovels clang together. I got up, used the restroom, and did my pregnant stretches before climbing back in. That's when I heard another lure of a voice like my hubby's again, by our room outside, super windy. Hello? Sleepy part of me almost talked back, but my consciousness held it back. I know to never talk, never give permission to enter the home, to never say anyone's names or mine to them, never go outside, and if I am seen by one, eye contact, no words, back away, slowly into the house and haul ass to those stones and put that Indian blanket on my girl that my mother-in-law got from her best friend, an old reservation medicine man. What the written note said was it's to protect the innocents from evil spirits and call the good. I know I can't get rid of the Wen, because this is its land, not mine. But is there anything I can do to keep her from getting close or even ballsy this winter and attack my husband when he's going to work? I can't really get him to wear anything that isn't his compass necklace and wedding ring. He doesn't believe in that stuff, or maybe he does, and he just doesn't like to think of it. I'm pretty sure if it's a necklace, I'll just say I got this for you. I want you to wear it, to always have me with you and to keep you safe. He does a lot of stuff like that. Even if he hangs it on his rearview mirror, I'd still be happy. I work at this camp in rural Alabama. My friend and I had just finished our shift, which ended at 8, and I needed to use the bathroom, so we went to the dorms. The building always seemed creepy to me. The best way I can describe it is it gives off really bad vibes, especially the right side. The first thing I see when I walk in is a creepy red light to the left, so I went right instead. I went into a room and shut the door. I tried locking it, but it wouldn't turn all the way. I didn't want to keep messing with it, so I just left it alone and went into the bathroom. Everything was fine for a few minutes, until the lights started flickering. Immediately, I was trying to finish up as fast as I could and get out of there. Then they shut off completely. I'm freaking out at this point, and I text my friend to tell him what's going on. He texts me back and says that someone is standing at the door to the main room staring at him. This makes me think that he's messing with me, and I tell him to knock it off as it's not funny. But he's sending me pictures and videos of the building to show me he's not messing around. I get out of the bathroom and go up the door to try and lock it again. I turned it as hard as I could before it finally went all the way. After this, I start hearing loud banging coming from the main room. Wouldn't have been other staff because everyone had gone home at this point, and there were no campers in the dorms at the time. I tell my friend to send more pictures to prove he's still in my car, and he does. Now I'm crying because I'm too scared to leave the room, and I just want to go home. I beg him to come inside and get me so I won't be in there alone. Eventually, we make it out to my car and I drive out there as quickly as I can. I tell him about the banging and he tells me the person he saw in the window had walked into the kitchen, and that's probably where the noise was coming from. He said that the person he saw might have been the Nauvoo girl. He says that everyone here knows about her, but doesn't remember what's happened to her. I try Googling it, but the only thing that comes up is a parody Twitter account. After tonight, I'm never going in that building again. My brother had 3 of his friends over at our old place, and they were watching a ghost movie. Dunno what, and they went to go and get some snacks from within the pantry, which was of course in the kitchen. Although connected to the kitchen was the stairwell to the lower level of our place, where a store is located, and below the store is our basement with our laundry machine. I had mentioned in my other story that the people that had owned the store were doing illegal things which conjured a ton of negative energy, which led to spirits inhabiting our house. Back to the story. My brother had mentioned that there were spirits in the house, which caused one of the friends, we'll call him Germ, to act all tough like he supposedly always does. It resulted in him opening the door and openly taunting the demons downstairs to go and fight him, to which he was surprised when he heard something large sprinting up the stairwell. James slammed the door and deadbolted it shut as the demon started to pound on the door, causing the door frame itself to rattle in place. My brother called him an idiot afterwards, and then proved that he too is an idiot by playing with a homemade version of a Ouija board, and him and his 3 stooges began to talk with one of the friendly spirits within the upper part of the building. During 1975 to 1977, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi had a state of emergency declared across India, which allowed civil liberties to be suspended and the press censored. Hence, authentic news was hard to come by. My grandfather, who lived in Patna, Bihar during that time, rebelled and started an underground newspaper along with like-minded people. This helped him keep up with the news that the government would usually censor. Thankfully, he and his colleagues were never caught. One of the worst human rights violations that happened during this phase was a mass forced sterilization campaign spearheaded by Sanjay Gandhi, the Prime Minister's son. Hospitals had been allotted quotas on the number of compulsory sterilizations they had to perform every day, and needless to say, found a shortage of consenting men after a while. To avoid the wrath of the government, they started picking up homeless people from the streets and performed forced sterilizations on them. My grandfather interviewed such people, a majority of whom claimed they were sleeping on the street, and woke up the next day with nurtured genitals and a hospital receipt in their pocket. Now, in their indiscriminate abduction spree, The hospital staff once picked up a sadhu, a Hindu saint, who was sleeping under a banyan tree and forcibly sterilized him. To give context, sadhus are renunciate saints who are celibate. They are said to be close to God and have mystic powers, at least the genuine ones. Also, their customs include never cutting their hair, where the spiritual powers are said to reside. Hence, what happened to the sadhu can be considered extremely disrespectful. He was extremely agitated when he met my grandfather, and in his anger broke a hair from his head, threw it on the ground and thundered, "I swear upon my worship of Lord Ram, a Hindu deity. If I have even an iota of his blessings upon me, no one from the Gandhi family will die a natural death. As a proof of my powers, anyone who opens the book Ramacharitammanas, a holy book dealing with the Lord Ram's journey, today will find the hair I just threw inside it." My grandfather was incredulous regarding the sadhu's claim, but went home to have a look inside an early edition of Gita Press published Ramacharitmanas, kept at his home. To his astonishment, he found a single curled up hair strand on the first page of the book. But still, the sadhu's claim of putting a generational curse on the Gandhi family seemed far-fetched to him. As the years passed by, the sadhu's prediction came true. On 23rd of June 1980, Sanjay Gandhi was flying a new aircraft of the Delhi Flying Club and, while performing an aerobatic maneuver over his office, lost control and died instantly from the crash. On 31st of October 1984, two of Indira Gandhi's bodyguards shot her with their service weapons in the garden of their Prime Minister's residence and assassinated her. On 21st of May 1991, Rajiv Gandhi, Indira's younger son, was assassinated by LTTE, a militant organisation, through a suicide bombing attack.